Hey you guys, Scoop Malera here. Now it's been a little while, but today I've got something I'm coming to you with that I'm really excited to tell you. Recently, a good friend of mine suggested that I look into a few of these different radio stations, national radio stations, that have different podcasts and radio shows where they highlight different stories that storytellers tell. They make it so easy, I was able to submit, I think in 250 words or less, the suggestion that I have to be a storyteller on an upcoming show where they're going to record different people's stories of about 8 to 10 minutes about this month's upcoming topic. And the topic that they had open for the next month for submission was about empowering handicapped people. And they didn't get a whole lot more specific than that, but I took those 250 words to suggest that I'm given the opportunity to tell a story or two that I've come across over the years about folks in this situation. And the story that I gave them was about a woman that knitted an Afghan of the American flag that came out perfect. And she's blind. And her elderly parents helped her do this. And what I teased them with in my 250 words or less was that I had one or two other stories and I would like to introduce them as a montage. And I was so excited to find out that like 2 days later, they emailed me back and asked me for more information and actually asked if we could figure out a time where we could speak on the phone for about a half an hour. So we lined it up. So on Friday of this week, on my lunch break at school, I'm going to call this guy and we're going to talk. And I know that he's given me a half an hour, but the idea is that within about an 8-minute time span, I should be able to pitch to him what I'm hoping they're going to use on their show. So I thought what I would do is practice this a little bit, try to get my timing right, and share this with you guys. So here's what I'm thinking of saying just right from the very beginning with this guy. So for starters, what I want to suggest to you is that I'm going to take this in a slightly different angle, and I want to do so through 3 different stories with different people that I've met personally over the years. The first one was from a woman that I met at a county fair in Minnesota at the Olmsted Free Fair, and she was there. She was probably in her mid-20s, but her parents seemed to be in their late 60s, and they were the nicest couple, and they showed me a picture of their daughter and this Afghan that she had knitted. It was of the American flag, and it was probably about 6, maybe 6.5 feet tall, and it looked perfect. And then they pointed out to me that she was blind. The parents, the mother in particular, walked her through stitch by stitch and let her know which color they were switching to, and the girl kept track of everything, and she knitted this quilt. And then the father was very involved in the community, and he let other people in the community know what his daughter had done, and she started speaking at different engagements. You see, the reason she chose the American flag is because she's so passionate about her freedom and getting to live here in America. And it was so cool that her parents were able to put her in a position that she was able to do something with that love of her freedom. Now, the next story I want to tell you guys about was about a performer. Now, this guy was an Elvis tribute artist. Don't let him hear you call him an Elvis impersonator, because there's a big difference. And he performed at a festival that I was at, and it was so neat the way that he really called out and paid attention to the troops. And I decided to look into this guy, and I found out that he actually performs a lot on his own time to help with different organizations. And I actually did an interview with him at a convalescent home where he was giving of his time to go sing. And this guy did not just sing, he became Elvis for the people at this place. And this convalescent home was about 50% senior citizens that could no longer take care of themselves, and 50% handicapped older folks that really weren't all together there. And he didn't get anything for doing this, but he just liked giving up his time to try to make the world a better place, particularly for those that just didn't have the opportunity for entertainment like this on a regular basis. And then the last one I want to tell you guys about, I went to a restaurant, and I was, without getting too much into the long story of it, I was very impatient because my van's air conditioning was broken, and I was with my wife and daughter, and we had a 1-hour drive ahead of us, and they didn't realize how hot that van was going to be. So I was so impatient that I didn't mind sitting outside. And without making it too long and tedious, I'll just suffice to say that while we were there for an hour and a half, there was another family that had gotten seated outside right across from us, but my wife and daughter were angled where they couldn't see them. And I was able to watch what was happening at their table. And what I saw was a mother and her child, and then a grandmother and grandfather, you could tell. But the child right away had the full attention of the grandfather. And when I looked more closely, the child wasn't sitting in a regular chair. He was sitting in a wheelchair, but not just a wheelchair. One of those permanent wheelchairs that you could tell this kid is in this chair all the time. And I could only see him from the back, but I could see so clearly the grandfather who was paying so much attention to him. And right off the bat, he had taken out some kind of cards and they were playing a card game. And then I went back and looked at the menu that had finally been brought to us by the waiter that after 15 minutes took our drink orders. I looked back over, and now the grandfather and the son, instead of the cards, now they're having some sort of a heart-to-heart talk. You could tell they're like just, having this conversation, and the grandfather's totally in tune with him. And I see the mom and the grandmother having their own conversation. And then finally, 10, 15 more minutes go by, he takes our order. And as all of this is going on, now I'm looking back over and they're playing some other sort of game. And you can see the grandfather's visibly upset because he's losing at something or something went wrong for him. And our meal finally comes, and it had to be, like I said, a good hour and a half before we got out of there. But by the time it finally became time to leave, I just had this feeling inside, like I was just so grateful that child had someone that cared that much for him. And it was so obvious it wasn't the first time that these two had spent this type of time together. And it just kind of reminds me how great the world is when people are matched up with the right people. And it made me wish that everybody had a grandfather in their life like that guy was, because he truthfully made that boy's life a better place. Anyways, I know this is a little different angle that I'm suggesting I approach this with, because I'm not so much calling out the accomplishments of the handicapped people so much in these stories, but the fact that they're regular everyday people, and the people that are in their lives are helping enrich them and allow them to live their lives to the fullest. So maybe it's just taking a moment to stop and celebrate some of those people that are out there that are stepping up and making the world a better place for those that could use a little extra hand in these situations. I'm not quite sure, but I hope that you'll consider going with this story. I have a feeling that there are a lot of people that it will touch, because as I have traveled the country a lot, there are so many people that do step up and help make other people's lives better, and they do it in a selfless way. And I think that perpetuating those things by telling stories like these will only make the world a better place. Anyhow, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. And as far as the Scoot Nation out there, if you stayed through all of this, thank you so much. I really needed to just say this out loud and hear it, and now I can go back and watch it. But regardless, I'm going to post this because I know that if you will continue to subscribe, like, and share, there will be more Scoot Malaire.